there, YouTube. Welcome back to the channel. Today I want to go over this. It's a universal remote. The company that I slave away at is an AV company, and it's a pretty common remote, but it's a piece of technology that not too many people have taken a look at online. And it's something that I think almost everybody should have unless you're... Well, there really isn't any excuse. Everybody should have something like this in some capacity. So, this is the URC MX-780. You can kind of see on the bottom, 780. From URC, stands for Universal Remote Control. They have a ton of universal style remotes like this. This is kind of their mid-range model. There are models that are less expensive and proportionately worse than this, and there are many models that are nicer and much more expensive than this. So this is middle of the road. It is a wand style, obviously, hard button remote with color LCD interface. I'll read some specs online here and then we'll kind of take a look at it. It has on here, there's a little button on the side. It doesn't have an accelerometer in it, which I think actually for the price is really embarrassing. You can find, I can't remember what retail price is off the top of my head, but you can find them online between $100 and $300. So it's definitely an expensive remote, especially for something compared to a, for example, Logitech Harmony 650. Extremely popular universal remote. It functions very similar like this, except for a couple key features, but it does have an accelerometer, so when you pick up the remote, the screen will turn on. This actually has a button on the side that says light, and that will turn the remote on. So, before we get into this, I want to go over a couple specs. It has a 1.46 LCD screen, 1.46 inch. You can control up to 48 devices with this. It functions on the 418 megahertz or 433 megahertz bands. It uses RF. Stands for radio frequency. A lot of remotes, including the infamous Logitech Harmony remotes, function on IR or infrared. That means you have to point the remote at the device you want to control, like your TV or your cable box or something else. But this and many other higher-end universal remotes function on radio frequency, which means they don't need that line of sight. You can hide all of your equipment in a closed cabinet and not have the doors open, or in another room, or in another part of your house, and still be able to control this within a certain range, obviously. You can't control stuff from across the globe, or it's whatever RF range is. Has a whole bunch of colored buttons. I mean, really, everything from this down is very common. You've got your arrow buttons, select and start. You've got menu, info, guide, exit, channel up and down, volume up and down, previous channel, mute. All of our colored keys here for cable boxes and quick commands. You've got your number pad down here, and then this section in the middle has your play, pause, rewind, fast forward, stop record, skip forward, and skip back. So it's a pretty simple remote, minus the top part, and we'll get to that in a second. Specifications: it uses an ARM7 TDMI microprocessor, if you're interested in that. It has 32 megabyte of NOR flash. The 1.46 inch LCD screen is 128 by 128 pixels, up to 48 devices, and up to 8 pages of control commands for each devices, for a total of 384 pages. And I hope you don't have that many. Macro capability, this will do some macros, and we'll get into that in a second. It can have up to 255 steps for each macro. IR range, this does do IR, line of sight, between 30 and 50 feet, depending on the environment. Now, radio frequency, that's the big perk to this remote. That is between 50 and 100 feet, depending on environments like walls and, you know, interfering frequencies in the area, so that depends. It weighs 8.5 ounces with batteries. The size here is 8.7 inches by 2.2 wide, and then deep it is 1.3 inches at its biggest point. It uses 4 alkaline batteries, another thing I'm slightly disappointed in because of the price. A lot of them come with a nice rechargeable base. This uses 4 AA batteries. For 18 hours of continuous button pressing and backlight LCD on time for most users. Users should expect some variation depending on the brand of batteries and your use. But 18 hours of continuous use of this remote. Let's see. I think that's it for features. So, on the top here, we've got sort of some commands. It's a little bit hard to see in the camera. You've got little icons here like TV and Blu-ray and Android TV and Western Digital TV and Xbox 360 and AV switcher and, you know, a whole bunch of different activities. And you can push the button on the side corresponding with whatever activity that you so choose. And the macro that is built in will turn the TV on automatically for you, turn your receiver on, turn the cable box on, and automatically switch to the correct inputs on the TV and the receiver. Go to your last channel. This is all remotes that you could ever possibly want wrapped into one. So rather than having 8 remotes to control, you know, the TV for volume and the cable box for the DVR and the receiver for the volume, this does it all in one. Plus has that nice macro ability where if I want to listen to music, and I listen to music through my Bluetooth on a receiver connected to an iPad that's in the room, it will power those devices on appropriately, go to the correct inputs, start the Bluetooth pairing process, maybe default pair with something if it's already been paired, and then this remote will turn into the appropriate remote with volume and skip forward and skip back for that activity. If I wanted to switch to watching a Blu-ray, it would appropriately give the commands in that macro to switch from one task to another. And then this remote turns into a Blu-ray remote. So when I'm controlling the volume or if I want to pause something, it will pause the appropriate device. Keep in mind, though, since these are not very hard, they're easy to get your hands on eBay or other things like that. There's a very big used market for these. But you can't really exactly go into Best Buy or Staples or your local electronics store and buy one of these. These are usually sold by high-end electronics retailers, AV companies, other things like that. You kind of have to have some sort of in to get these products unless you go used. And then on top of that, it's not as easily programmed as a Logitech Harmony remote. This does require custom software and somebody that is trained in that software to be able to program that. Now, there are resources online, which are, again, aren't that easy to get a hold of, that you can train yourself on how to program this very specifically. You can get so far, but the software is very hard to get a hold of unless you're a dealer. The tutorials and other things like that are very hard to get a hold of unless you're a dealer, so just keep that in mind. But these are outstanding. The RF is fantastic. No more pointing it at anything. You can control it from anywhere in, you know, however big of a room you have. It's really, really fantastic. The screen is just wonderful. There's so many, you know, different interfaces and, you know, device pages that you can do on here. It's a really diverse, robust, all-in-one sort of solution. It is a bigger remote, but I like the design. It's comfortable in the hand. The batteries aren't too horrible. I definitely prefer the rechargeable battery with some of the higher end models because then it comes with a nice kind of charging cradle. But it's not the end of the world. But for $300, I would expect just a little bit more. And then you've got buttons up here like system on and system off to turn things on a certain way or off a certain way when you're done at the end of the day or the end of the night with whatever you're doing. So using this device is incredibly simple. Setting it up, on the other hand, not so much. I can't say enough about this remote. There are pros and cons to all remotes, but this is definitely something that I would recommend for somebody who's got a home theater or something like that, or a big, you know, great room project where they have receivers and multiple sources and TVs and maybe a Zone 2 and things like Sonos and a lot of different sources. So it's a wonderful remote. I recommend you get one. And that's about it. Like the video if you like it. Dislike it if you dislike it. Questions or comments, let me know. I'm using this in my own home. I actually picked this up for a steal on eBay. You can find them very occasionally in the sub-$100 range on eBay. But let me know if you've got any questions. I'll be around to answer them the best I can, and we will see you in the next one, guys. Thank you.